Hi there, everybody. Today we're going to walk through how to revise your essay. In this video, we're going to focus specifically on the big stuff. All right. So if you take a look here, you'll see kind of a checklist for revising the big stuff. We have the thesis statement, paragraph topics, evidence, analysis, synthesis, and organization. So what we'll do is I'm going to just walk you through what that will look like. Okay. So the first thing on our checklist was thesis statements. So this is a sample essay from a student from a former class. The first thing that you'll do is just scroll down to look for the thesis statement. The thesis statement is the last sentence of the first paragraph, the introduction. And in this case, the thesis statement's right here. What you want to check for, is it arguable? Is it specific? And is it clear, right? So I'm going to read over this thesis statement. Liberals, politicians, and some citizens believe the American dream doesn't exist, but in fact, the American dream is very much alive. We should all be making our own American dream. So is it specific? Definitely focus on the American dream. Is it arguable? Yes, it's alive. Is it specific? Yes. Is there a so what? Yes. Like, we should all be making our American dream. So this thesis statement would meet the checklist. I would maybe revise some of the wording at the beginning, but that's like a minor thing. The next thing on our checklist is paragraph topics. Does each paragraph back up the thesis statement with specific evidence and analysis? So the way that I would go about doing this is I would just scroll through. I would read the topic sentence of each paragraph, and I'm just scanning through and I'm seeing articles, I'm seeing quotes, and I would read these topic sentences and just see how they relate back to the thesis statement. Sometimes it's helpful to highlight the thesis statement in a different color or bolded or something, so you know what you're matching back up to. Sometimes what I do is I also will like underline or bold the topic sentences, so that way I know, like, okay, I read that one, I read this one, I read this one. I'm checking to make sure that each paragraph has evidence, and it does. Each paragraph has evidence. Okay, perfect. Oops. So now I'll go back to my checklist, and I need to actually check this evidence. Does each paragraph include specific quotes? Are they provided in a quote sandwich? And are there specific examples? We might add to this checklist like relevant, right? It's not just that we want to have quotes, we want to have relevant quotes. So I'll just go to the first paragraph here, and I'm not going to read like the context. I'm just going to go straight to the quote itself. All right, so the first thing I'm going to check is there an article introduction? Yes, I see the title of the article, I see the author, I see the main point, I see an introduction quote to the quote, I see that the quote is stated, I see that it's cited, and then I see that the quote is then summarized, right? In other words, and then the quote is summarized. So that quote looks good. I'd move on to the next quote, all right? Again, there's a statement on the title, the author, the main point, the quote is introduced, they give the quote, they cite the quote is then explained. Perfect. And then you just follow that model for each quote. You just go through each quote, each piece of evidence, and do that analysis. I'm going to mark these ones in green, like, okay, I checked this off already. We'll go back to the checklist, and the next thing is analysis. Does each example include specific analysis that tells the reader why the information is important? So I'm going to go to the end here, and this doesn't look like it has any analysis. Oh, maybe one sentence right here of analysis. I would maybe mark this as like an area for revision, because there's only one sentence of explanation before it moves to the next example. So that means that there probably isn't even synthesis between the two examples. So that would be an area for revision. So you'll see though that I'm just jumping right to where analysis should be in the essay. I'm not reading the whole paragraph. I'm just looking specifically at the places that these pieces should be and checking to see if they're there. Next, synthesis. So I can tell right away that there's only one sentence here. That's not going to be enough. I'll also jump to the end of the paragraph. Even though their bulls make a respectable point, it doesn't mean the American dream is dead. American dream doesn't have to do with economic status. It's alive and many people are living the experience. So it does conclude, this paragraph does seem to have some synthesis that relates back to the thesis statement, specifically using some of these same phrases. So I know that there's like a very strong, clear connection. So synthesis looks good here. And I would just go to the next paragraph and read the last few sentences of that paragraph too. The American dream is still possible. So again, I see these kind of like connection sentences. Back to the checklist, organization. This is going to require you to look at all the topics. At this point though, you pretty thoroughly reviewed each portion of the essay. And then you might decide, like, should I move this paragraph up? Does this quote move to a new paragraph? Like, do I need to do some rearranging here? Really what I want you to see from this example is that you're not reading the essay as a whole. You're jumping around to these different pieces and looking at these pieces individually. And then you'll look at them together as you move forward doing some rereading. But really you want to check each piece individually to make sure that it's doing its job within the essay. And that's kind of how you revise the big stuff. Let me know, if you have questions about any of this. It takes a long time, right? Like this is a pretty long video and that's just an example. And so you can see that the importance of revision, that it takes time and it takes focused reading. As always, let me know if you have questions.